Welcome to the Strangers on the Way podcast. Today, I'm just declaring it's going to be one of the most powerful, or at least the most fun podcasts that we've ever had. Today, I'm honored and humbled and thrilled and so excited to introduce you to my mom, Annie Hansen. This woman is my best friend. She has walked me and our family through the fire, through the mountaintops. She is so full of life and love and joy and faith. And I am just really excited to put her on display for you all, with you all today. Annie, welcome to the Strangers on the Way podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's an honor to have you. I see that you have some interesting props behind you. For those that are not joining us on YouTube, Annie has a really pretty, colorful kite behind her and a telescope. Could you tell us about your toys as we begin? How did they come
Well, in
into
that case, there's a paddleboard back there too. I just don't know how to get it.
Yes, a paddleboard, and in another room there's some ice skates.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, could you just share a little bit about things that you love and just how they're kind of more recent developments or maybe full circle from childhood. But yeah, would you share just a little bit about like things that you loved as a kid and how they are back in your life in your 60s?
Okay. Well, like you said, I loved ice skating, so that's back. Um, I fly kites here at the sanctuary where I live, which is in my new life, my after 60 life here at the sanctuary. Um, the telescope, when you get out in nature and you live on a lake, which the sanctuary is on a lake, you see the sky and you see the stars. And in fact, once you get to the place where I am spiritually, you see the stars and you see the sky and you see the joy and you notice the swans and the eagles and all the beautiful things that God's provided.
Yeah.
Not sure I answered your question.
No, that was perfect. I love it. Yeah, I love it. Could you share just like um you I would say walked through and overcome more than maybe your average person, or I guess we all walk through different things. But could you just share a bit of your story? And so, like now in your life, you're in this, I mean, really beautiful phase of you live on a little lake, and you have all of these joys, and you see the beauty in nature. And I feel like everywhere you go, you see the light. But I know you've kind of walked through, yeah, the fire. So could you share just a little bit about your journey with our family that brought you to this place?
Man, I could have used some bullets from my editor before we started this because
I know.
that's
Well,
you, buddy.
how about talk about how you, well, okay, first, let's go all the way to the beginning, your childhood. So you grew up with six siblings, seven including you, and you had a really unique childhood. It wasn't the easiest, but I think there's this thread of love. So can you just share like about that, growing up in a big family and what was like kind of cultivated in you, even in the midst of hard times?
Okay, so I grew up in a family of 7 kids. My mom had 7 kids in 7 years, from the ages of 23 to 30. I had the role of the second child, which is a perfect space besides baby to be in a large family. Um, my mom had a really tough life because my dad was tough. He drank a lot, and it really did impact our family. My mom spent a lot of time protecting us and making sure that we were safe in the midst of what she was going through. And the one thing that she just insisted on for the 7 kids is that we love each other, that we bond together. I guess I could share a really good growing up family story, the way that my mom parented. It was so like, when it happened, very angry, like get really angry as a child. And then it just turned into this really awesome thing. And that thread of love that you were talking about kind of originates in this. So with 7 kids, there's always something going on. There's usually somebody fighting, especially when we're all so close in age. And the quarters that we lived in were like our home was small for 9 people. And so when we would have arguments or get in a fight, because we would, she would make us go and sit on the stairs with our hands on our knees facing each other. We weren't allowed to talk. We had to just stare at each other. We weren't allowed to take our eyes off each other. So putting 2 kids that are really angry in that position, and it can, you get 6 other people that you're going to sit on those stairs with over the course of time. And you probably can't make it like 1 or 2 minutes before you're laughing. And actually laughing at our mom at how ridiculous it was that she did that, because now we're friends. That's how we saw it. And of course, so I
Mhm.
think that's the beginning of that thread of love that you're talking about.
Yeah.
My mom was also very faithful. She was Catholic. She raised us Catholic. I could tell you that at the end of her life, I questioned her spirituality, because, I know that when you die, you go to heaven, but you go to heaven, if you believe in Jesus and you believe that Jesus is your Lord and Savior. And so I knew my mom from a religious perspective, and she knew she'd been told that she didn't have very much time to live. And so during that time, we all had the blessing of talking to her and, making amends with her or whatever it was that we needed to do. And I said to her, I remember sitting on the lawn looking out at the lake, and I'm like, hey, Mom, can you just tell me what you believe? And she's like, oh, Annie, she's like, it's so weird that you asked me that question, because I mean, all my life, she goes, the only way I got through this was talking to Jesus. All the really, really, really hard times, you can only turn to Jesus. She said, I would turn to my faith, my religion, and it couldn't provide the answers, because I
Mm.
was told to go back into whatever. She goes, but I would just talk to Jesus. And you know, that's how we got through.
Mm. I love that. It's so beautiful. I I'm reminded of a story. The kite behind you is rainbow colored, and so I love to share just a grandma story too. Um, my grandma, my mom's mom, that she was just talking about, was the best. And I don't know how she did it, but she would have these grandma sleepovers once a year with all of the cousins, and there was like, I don't know, 15 or 16 of us, 17 maybe. And we would either be at their house. Um, one year we were at a hotel, but she would take all of us for the night. And our parents weren't invited, and we'd have the best time watching movies and playing. And it was just awesome. So she was one of those grandmas. And when I was
And it was
11 years
called a
old, oh, yeah, go
grandma
ahead.
sleepover.
Yes, grandma sleepover. And when I was 11, she passed away. She got sick suddenly and passed away over a couple months. And on the day that she passed, my dad came and picked my brother and I up to take us to my grandparents' house to be with our family. And I was heartbroken because she was, it was I think my first experience of death. And then she was the best grandma. So I was just heartbroken. And I was in the back seat of my dad's car with my head face down on the seat, and I was just crying. And I don't know why I asked, but I just asked Jesus, Jesus, could I have a rainbow so that I would know my grandma's okay, like with you in heaven? And a couple minutes later, I sat up and we were passing a cornfield. And across this cornfield was the biggest rainbow stretched all the way across. And I knew that she was okay and that she was in heaven. And I was just so excited. And so I told my family when I got there, my mom and my uncle had seen it too. And it was just so powerful. And so, like, I think those are the ways God's met our family over so many, I mean, tragedies and things too. But he's always done things like that to show us that he is there with us in our pain and our grief. And so, yeah, that's kind of the context that I was born in, and then my mom too. And so we do have this beautiful legacy of faith, which is such a gift to like have and pass down. Mom, could you share a bit? I know you were raised in the faith, but it really became your own when you like were in your 30s. Is that right? Could you share like a little bit about, I know you met some cool people and you saw some things in them that were like, huh. Could you share about like your faith walk?
I can. Obviously my mom had faith and, that impacted me.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so I met Daddy's grandma, Gigi, when we lived in California. This woman, she just had Jesus. She was the light in the room. Everybody went towards her. It didn't matter if you believed in the Lord or not. She was just that gal. You just wanted to be near her. And I'm like, what in the world does this gal have? What does she have? And, obviously I grew to just really, really love her. And, you know, um, she never said anything negative about anyone, like, Daddy's dad passed away when he was 49 years old. He was quite troubled and he had a problem with alcohol. And she would never, this is her son-in-law who divorced her daughter. And, there was a lot of tribulation. Never would she say like a negative word about him. In fact, she said something to the extent of, there's waves in life and sometimes they take us out. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that person. It's the wave. And I thought,
Yeah.
gosh, what? So anyway, she was so faithful and she loved Jesus and she wasn't afraid to tell the whole world. And so that was the first time that I really came in contact with the real Jesus, the not church, but the real having a real relationship with Jesus Christ, I guess is what you would say. Um, and then so in my 30s, so then I got married. We had you first. And when I was 3 months pregnant with you, I always feel like this is a lot to reveal on someone that really can't defend themselves at times. But um, I was 3 months pregnant. Your dad was drinking a lot. And I was like, just like, oh goodness, now I'm in this space where I am married to an alcoholic and now I'm going to raise a child in an alcoholic family. I was just devastated, And I remember I sat on my couch one night and I'm just like, okay, God. And pretty much just about everything along the way, I'm like, okay, God, you said this. And so now I challenge you kind of like, so I'm like, God, you said give it to you, whatever it is. So I don't want to be in a marriage with an alcoholic. I don't want to raise a child in an alcoholic space. I don't want my spouse to be drinking and just all that. So just crying and weeping. And so put it to bed. And frankly, daddy was gone that night. He was out partying. That's what he did during that season. And so next day, I'm working. I get a phone call. Dad has gone to the doctor. He is being told that he has to go to the hospital right away because he's bleeding out. He had bled out 63% of the blood in his body because he'd blown a hole in his duodenal part of his stomach. So just the idea that he was standing was like, the doctor was like, we have to get you there. You're going to die. So he got blood transfusions. And after that was told in the hospital the next day, you can't drink. You drink, you die. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, God answered my prayer that fast? Like, I, it was just the craziest thing ever. I remember driving home in the car from the hospital being like, this didn't really happen. Like, did you really do this, God? And there was so much like, I don't know, joy, exhilaration, like, oh my gosh, you heard me. You
Yeah.
heard me, but not only did you hear me, and I know this makes me cry, but not only did you hear me, but you answered my prayer, So anyway, so there's that. Um, Obviously, okay, so I was with your dad for 40 years. And he was the love of my life. I thought, like the ground that he walked on, was sacred or whatever. But along the way, I come to find out that he's pretty troubled. He's grown up in a really tough atmosphere. Um, he's had a lot of tribulation, and so it got kind of dark because let's just say it's mental illness. Lauren, you would call it a demon. whatever it's called, dad struggled with it the whole time. And so during that time, I got in this place where I'm like, God, you've done everything. In fact, one of the stories is quitting smoking. When you were 5 years old, I was a cigarette smoker since I was 13 years old. And I was like, I got to quit smoking. And so I gave that to God, and I'm like, okay, you do it. And then I didn't have cigarettes one day and I quit smoking. And I'm like, oh, this sucks. This is the day I have to quit smoking. I was like, like this with God, like, but I'm like, okay, I'm like, all right, you said it. All right, I'll do it. And it wasn't horrible. But anyways, that being said, same thing with, okay, God, I've seen all these things you've done, so you're going to fix my marriage. I know you're going to fix my marriage. I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be faithful. And all along the way, there was so much joy and so much greatness in it because I had the pleasure of being in a family we laughed a lot. Things
Yeah.
are funny, you know, inappropriate and whatever. Things are funny to us. And so we do laugh a lot and we did laugh a lot and dad laughed a lot. So anyway, I waited and waited, and I was sure that God was going to fix my marriage, and ultimately, just you know, all the things that come with mental illness. Dad threatened to kill me, and so I left. And at that time was like a huge God moment because I had no intention of ever leaving Dad. I was going to wait till God fixed it, and I knew He was. I was so sure of it. So I heard God's voice. All right, go get your stuff and go. And I'm like, get my stuff and go. And I was obedient to that, but I wasn't aware of really what I was doing. I was just like, okay. And I went through the motions of getting my stuff. And at that time, like dad kind of came around, like, what are you doing? I'm like, I gotta go. And that was it. And I just packed up my stuff. I went. And unfortunately, I never went back. Like it got really bad. We ended up getting divorced. It wasn't awesome. Not, I guess divorce is not awesome, but I ended up with none of my stuff, which I thought was so horrible, which ended up being the greatest blessing of all. Because who needs stuff? It's just stuff. It's a burden that you drag around with as you get older, uh, and then I ended up in this space. That was a God thing too. I was looking for a place to live. Um, I'd moved into another place and moved out of it within 24 hours because it turned out it was going to be a bad situation. And um, I had my phone. This app popped up. I used the app. I found this house. It was the first day the gal, an 80-year-old woman, had put it on the market for renting. And my brother-in-law Danny, who's a man, like the best brother, came with me to look at the space, and he's the one that gave me the little push, like, yeah, do it. I'm like, oh, I can't afford this. He's like, 1 year in, give it 1 year. You can't afford it. And so I've been here 6 or 7 years, and it's just been awesome. The waiting, uh, so God knew how this was going to end with dad. I don't know, like how much you want to share about how it ended, but um, he protected me because it's quite possible that dad wouldn't be able to deal with his illness and not kill me. You know, I can see it after the fact, after his passing, that God really did protect me. And in fact, when you guys had to suffer the loss of your dad, I wasn't in that space. That was like a perfect example of God's amazing timing and how he just, because you guys needed to have a parent during that time. It was so awesome. I say awesome, but God's timing was awesome on that,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. My mom was, they got divorced a couple years before my dad passed. And so by the time my dad passed away, my mom had grieved enough to actually be able to help my brother and I grieve. So it really was such a gift in so many ways. But I know, Mom, your grief process, and it was funny, not funny, but my mom was getting divorced. I was going through a breakup, and at the same time, and I would drive and spend Sundays with my mom. I lived in Wisconsin at the time, and I would sleep over and then drive up to work on Monday mornings. And in the morning, we would read a little devotional together and just cry. Like we
Weep.
were in such
Oh
pain.
my
Our
gosh,
hearts,
we would
yeah,
weep. Oh,
our
oh.
hearts were so broken. Um, but mom, I think watching everyone grieves differently. And so like God has taken me on like a longer, like with dad, a long, like kind of a long, or maybe, yeah, a longer process of grief, but it's been beautiful. But I just love how you have grieved and then how God has brought you into literally this like spacious place and this abundant life. And I know there were just like certain things that you did, maybe without even knowing, like dancing. And like, could you just share a little bit about that, like how you walked through the pain and then where it's led you now? Um,
Well, I can. So, starting off as kids, when the doo doo would hit the fan, and it would, because there would be just like knockdown, drag out fights or screaming or yelling, just because of the nature of the beast. And we would just go in in the living room in our house. There's 5 girls and 2 boys. The boys not so much, but they could have been there. We might not have noticed. Like that. That's not nice. That's not. I
we
don't mean
love
that.
them.
I do not mean that. I adore my brothers. And so anyway, we would just dance. We would dance all the time. We would dance upstairs. We would just dance. It was just so cathartic and just it just the endorphins, whatever it is, we dance. We so to this day we still dance. You know, my sisters like to come up to the sanctuary on Sundays and we can be in a conversation around the table and all of a sudden we're dancing because of some music or who even needs music with us. But so I had this really awesome moment that I didn't really know it was. I didn't know it was happening, frankly, until after the fact. But I was living over at my dad's, and I was alone, and I was devastated by the loss of my relationship and the betrayal. It's like the betrayal I felt from my husband, like, and just anyway, all of that. So I remember I had just read an email that was it just was so hurtful. It wasn't even written by him. It was written by a family member about me, and it just hurt me so bad. And uh, I couldn't even hardly breathe. And it's the middle of the night, and I can't sleep, and I just turned on some music. So I love Roger Hodgson, uh, Supertramp, the band, and I turned that on, and I cranked it up as loud as it would go. It was a winter night. It was cold outside. The windows were closed, uh, thankfully, because the neighbors would have totally heard it. And I just started dancing. And the time just kept going by. I was crying and screaming and singing. But the whole time I was dancing so much so that, like, an hour into it, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, I can't tell you how long it went for, but um, I was just beat at the end of it, just completely spent, completely soaking wet. Um, you know, But after that, it was like I was just healed from the pain of that. The anger that I felt, all of those icky feelings, they just went away. They never came back. And it's like, it took me a while to realize that, oh my gosh, that was probably the moment. I was not alone, obviously, dancing. I believe that Jesus is always beside us. But that one was a really good one because it was just God gave me something that I love doing to be able to process something that was just killing me. And it went away. That's what happened.
Mm, I love you, mom.
Makes me cry. It makes me laugh too because shoot, it could have been like you know, the way we grew up, like there was a penance or whatever, and it could have been something like that, or it could have been like, just really taking the band-aid off and really, really more and more pain. But that's not how it was. It was a painful moment in what was going on in my head, but everything came out my body,
Yeah, yeah,
all the
yeah.
darkness and stuff.
So powerful. I just love it. I'm like, it's so cool because I was like, I had the grief books, I was doing the journals, like I was in all this stuff. And it took me 5 years, like 5 years, I like for God to walk me through, like I feel like
Yeah.
I'm at a place now where I feel like he's healed so much. And then my mom, she's just like living with Jesus, and then he's just like, we're just gonna dance all this out. And that's like I just it's such a like picture of who we are, and I just love it like so so much. So
It is kind of right. It's really, yeah. I know because that was like spiritual in a physical way, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and frankly, let's face it, you and I have discussed this. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. I told God all the different ways that He was going to fix my marriage, and I had all these great ideas for the 40 years. You know what you could do, God. I know it. You know, if you did this and I did that, seriously, I think in the last 20, I was more in the weight and more faithful, and then I still did it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I knew that He was going to fix it, and once I got to the place where I just waited, that's why, I mean, this is just kind of coming to me now, but when I was really in the place where I was waiting, however long that lasted, when God told me to leave, I heard His voice. I didn't really know that He had been that close in talking to me. I didn't really, I didn't really know that He was saving my life, because I know after the fact that He was. Because your dad, my husband, would not be able to, if I was with him, would not be able to lead this life without me.
yeah,
It was just part of his mental illness.
yeah. That's powerful, Mom. It is
There's just so
powerful.
much of that in my life all along, you know. Uh, I hate to tell my story because what I feel like happens, I don't know for sure. It takes a long time for me to share to people with people because it seems like I had this really horrible life. You know, like if you think about certain steps along the way, it could be presumed that it was like this horrible life. But I did not, and do not. I have an extremely joyful life. I'm in a completely different space of joy than I was back then because my joy now is that of a child. I mean, I'm flipping 66 years old and I'm seriously playing. I go in a kayak, I get on ice skates, I fly a kite, I stand up on a paddleboard, which I haven't done yet. And just all the different things I play, you know, like
Mhm.
I got a cute little story. My grandnephew Jaden, I love these kids so much and have the blessing of having my sister's grandkids as my great nieces and nephews, and I get to have them in my life. That being said, I had a bunch of kites here, and it was easier for me to fly kites here when the 80-year-old woman lived here because odds of her seeing me weren't great. But now there's a family with a lot of people in it living in the house, so I try to I don't know. Anyway, that being said, I had these kites. They were the plastic kinds I bought at the dollar store. I had bought them for the kids for when they come. And one day it was this great windy day, so I got out there and I got one of the kites. I put it together. I put it up. It got caught in the tree. I think I even have a video of just laughing because it was like the tree was flying the kite. Well, just because that happened, I left it up in the tree. I went and got another kite. It got away. Then the third kite that I had. So of course, about a week later, Jaden and his brothers and sisters, there's five of them now, four of them now. There's five kids in that family, came to the house and he's like, "And Annie, where are the kites?" I'm like, oh shoot, I broke them. You know, he goes, "Wait, how'd you break them?" And I go, "Oh, shoot, I flew them." And I showed him the video, like of the kite in the tree, which I thought would make him happy. He's probably like 8 years old at the time, and I'm like, he's just looking at it. He's just like, Why?" I'm like, "I don't know, cause I could. It was just so much fun." But Aunt Annie, weren't didn't you buy those kites for us to play with? I'm like, okay. So now I make sure there's always kites here because I felt so bad. But I'm like, I had no idea I thought that he would be in the fun with me and flying a kite. But he was just like, you broke the kites you bought for us. And Annie, you're not a kid. But I'm a kid. So Anyway,
You are a kid. I
I
love
am a
that.
kid.
So powerful. Uh,
Mhm.
this is so good. Mom, thank you for sharing your story. I feel like, yeah, you're just such a picture of hope. And um, for those that are going through valleys right now, just a picture of like what God can bring you into. And I love how I think what strikes me about you is that it's so funny, there's a train in the
Maybe.
background, and we grew up next to a train, so it's actually like very comforting, and it's kind of fun how we've been talking about childhood too.
Right.
So it seems kind of
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
God
Thanks,
orchestrated.
that was funny. He is kind of funny. The
Yeah,
things that he does. Oh, do
yeah,
too.
yeah. But I think, yeah, I think what's so beautiful is how you are constantly in communication with Jesus, like just asking for his help or asking him to guide you or like giggling with him or just noticing
And
different
full
things.
circle, that comes from my mom, that comfort of talking to Jesus. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. And there is like such of like a legacy too that our family has like been blessed to be a part of. There's a lot of
Mhm.
hardship too and like pain, but then there's this beautiful legacy of love and thread of love throughout, the generations. And I think that's like what Jesus invites us into, even with our spiritual family around the world. We're invited into these loving relationships um, that are so deep. But what I love too is how you just have overcome and like are constantly just looking at Jesus to help you in everything. And it's not like you tried to like, okay, now I'm gonna dance this trauma away, and okay,
No,
now I'm gonna find this house and like I'm gonna be
no,
surrounded by nature and heal. It's like he's literally led you by the hand the whole time, and
not the whole time, every moment.
yeah, and it's just such a beautiful picture, like of a loving father, and you're just like you're a really beautiful daughter of his, and it's just amazing to see his hand in your life.
Well, I feel gratitude that for that so much. I always think that it's really important that when you try like glorify me or honor me like that, that I give that glory right back to God, because not all of it is him. It's not me. I And my faith. Uh, uh, I think I learned my faith, uh, but all glory goes to God. I did not have a hard life. I've had a really joyful life, and bad things happen, you know. Um, but God always just turns everything into just such beauty, like you know, beauty from ashes. Shame into glory. All those things are just really, really true. And, uh, life is really easy when you have Jesus.
Hmm.
It's like you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to, a day can get turned around really, a moment can get turned around very simply just by turning to him. And, you know,
Yeah.
so anyway, all glory to God, because this is not me. This is him.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom shakalaka.
Boom shakalaka.
Mom.
Ow!
Aw, I love you, Mom.
I
Any
love you
last things you'd say to anyone listening today just to
guys.
encourage them or make them laugh? My mom, if you get her laughing, she will laugh for 5 minutes straight and you won't be able to unhinge her.
I think we should have a podcast with me and Janet from Australia, because
Yeah,
that gal, she has the same laugh, so we would just booger laugh and good laugh all the time, and nothing would get done. But I think that everybody that would watch would end up laughing. She's
yes,
got a contagious one. So
yeah,
I recommend that when you get in the darkness, to find the light. And I think sometimes it's simple as what I did in the darkness sometimes is turn on those funniest home videos and laugh. I think there's something in it. I don't know what God put in laughter that does is released in our body, but on the worst of times, like what could be the worst tribulation in the hospital rooms with dad. Even some of the things that happened, along the way with the kids and stuff, their laughter always ensued. At some point, there was laughter. I think like between you and me, like the sailboat thing on our vacation, it was like this little tribulation thing that just turned. Now we just laughed at it then for years and years.
Now you have to
You
share the
know,
story.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, you can share it better than I, but
But we
it
were
turned
in
into.
Jamaica. We were in Jamaica when I think I was like 12 maybe. And we rented a catamaran or a sailboat. And
Something
my
like that.
they were like, "Sir, do you need someone to help you sail?" And my dad was like, "No, no, I know how to sail."
I'm a master sailor, is what he said. I'm a master.
I'm a master sailor. And we go on the boat and all of a sudden we hit a coral reef, I think it was, and we get lodged and we're stuck in the ocean. And my brother and I, all that we know about the ocean is that there's sharks. So we start freaking out that we're going to get eaten by sharks. And so we're crying. My dad's like trying to figure out. So we had to be rescued, but it was hilarious looking back.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. Because he's such a big man, so everything that he did was larger than life. So everybody knew on the beach that he was a master sailor, and there we are, with screaming children. A wife that's not so happy because I never wanted to go sailing anyway, right? Whatever. Oh
Yep,
my goodness. Poor dad. So yeah, we tormented him with the master sailor.
a long time.
Little
Yeah,
things like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. He had a good sense of humor.
Hmm. Yes.
Not on that though.
True.
That was
Aw, I
to
love it.
him, but
So
yeah.
yeah, just laughter, even just shifting your situation. And I know you watch like baby videos sometimes, just
Oh gosh, even now, not even to shift, but there's so much joy in that because frankly, the babies are pure. They
Mhm.
haven't life has not,
Yeah.
touched them yet, and so, oh, they just have so much joy, and I think that's the joy of the Lord there. I think that's, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
from
So
babies. So yeah.
cute. Oh, thank you, Mom, for sharing your story. Love you
Oh,
so much.
I do love you so much too, baby. We
Thanks.
be blessed.
We be blessed. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.